Hi, friends. We at GLC would like to take a quick moment to thank you for watching our programs on this platform, and we'd like to ask you for a little favor. Would you please go beneath this video and click the subscribe button? Did you know that by simply subscribing to the GLC YouTube channel, you can help us financially support the programs on this platform? You'll need to be signed into YouTube beforehand. But if not, simply click the subscribe button and YouTube will automatically walk you through the steps to sign in or to create an account. By taking these simple steps, you will not only ensure that you continue to receive our unique programming and gain instant access to the hundreds of videos we post, but more importantly, you'll also be telling YouTube that GLC's content is worth watching and promoting. Likewise, if you enjoyed a specific program, please click the thumbs up button below, which also helps inform YouTube that this is a program worth recommending. Finally, once you have logged in and subscribed, please click the notification bell below in order to receive announcements when we post new content. As usual, feel free to post your questions and comments in the comments section below. We always love hearing from our friends and viewers. Again, thank you for watching and supporting God's Learning Channel. We couldn't spread the message of the gospel without you. Be blessed, and we hope you enjoy the show.
We have exciting news. GLC is delighted to share that our 501c3 tax exemption status has been officially reinstated. Your donations are now tax deductible, including those made after 2015. Reach out to us at the email address or phone on your screen for more info on receiving a receipt letter. Join us in making a positive impact on the kingdom of God. Consider contributing a tax-deductible gift today at www.glctv.tv. Every amount counts.
Hello, everyone. My name's Eric Espetia, and this is Holly Espetia.
Shalom. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Shalom. It is a hot summer, and we are having fun here in the studio for the Light of the Southwest. And today we have an amazing guest joining us all the way from Glen Rose, Texas. Please welcome Josh Lee of The Promise. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Holly. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, we have to confess something. We have never seen The Promise out of all the years it's been going on in Glen Rose, Texas.
Well, we're going to have to fix that.
Agree. Yes.
Agree. Well, 36 years and you guys are still going strong.
Yes, and hopefully getting stronger and stronger. I think there's been a period of time where, you know, the future of The Promise was kind of in doubt, and whether or not it would be able to continue at all. And, you know, now kind of the question is more, is it going to be able to continue in Glen Rose? But we are excited that it looks like the future is pretty bright for the production. And so we're hoping to continue it for many years to come.
That's exciting. Well, it's a blessing to have you today. I look forward to everything you have to share about The Promise and your part in it and the future of it. But as we get started, if you would open us up in prayer, we would really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, Father, thank you for today. Thank you that you love us, that you take care of us. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about The Promise in a new forum and make some new connections and get the word out about what we're doing here in Glen Rose, and just ask that you would bless our time and our conversation, that you would use this to further your purposes, both for The Promise and our new friends, and just ask that you would be with us and guide our conversation. Yes. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So Josh Lee, you are the executive director. What does an executive director do, or what don't you do?
And newly the executive director. Actually, I started on June 1st. And so I've been involved in the production for about 5 years prior to that. But essentially, I am running our day-to-day operations here at the Promise. And so when we have a production going, that's managing everything from our ticket sales and concessions and all of the things that happen with the actual amphitheater itself, to kind of guiding the artistic vision of what has now become 3 productions that we're putting on over the course of the year, all tied together. So I may need to take that one off the hook here in a second.
Yeah.
Hey, duty never stops.
That's right.
That's fun.
So we keep saying the Promise, and for our viewers, elaborate on what the Promise is.
Okay, so The Promise is originally a musical production that was written and first produced in about 1989. And originally, the show was designed, and the amphitheater here in Glen Rose was purpose-built for the show. And the show has run here this will be our 36th season coming up in the fall. Over the course of the years, The Promise has become an organization then that is still primarily concerned with putting on the Promise production. But we have also now added a Christmas production and an Easter production that all have some similar themes, and we use some bits and pieces of the shows kind of woven together. So there's kind of a continuous theme through the shows that we have here. But The Promise is now kind of the organization behind the shows, as well as the show itself.
And the show itself highlights and depicts
the life of Jesus.
The
Yes.
life of Jesus. Okay,
So,
is that from birth to resurrection? Anything prior? What is this?
Yeah, it depends on the show. So our fall season, which is kind of our main season, the original production ran from June all the way through October, which was just in Texas summers, you can imagine, was quite the deal. This being an outdoor production, and so we're in a 3,000 seat outdoor amphitheater, and I haven't been in the production long enough to have been a part of one of those long runs, but you can imagine putting on an outdoor show in the middle of July and August, and that would have been a little bit nuts. So our fall season has compressed a little bit. We typically go from either the end of August, kind of beginning of September through November. But the fall season is still our main show, kind of the main production that we spend kind of most of our time and energy in producing. And that show is the entire life of Christ, from the nativity all the way through the resurrection. Our Christmas show obviously would focus then more on the nativity part. And we don't go too far past the nativity for our Christmas show. And then our Easter show begins with the baptism of Jesus and the beginning of his ministry, and then goes through Passion Week and the resurrection.
Beautiful. And how many people are part of the cast?
We are hoping to grow the size of our cast. We have, with COVID, we still managed to put on a production, but the cast, the people who are available to be a part of the cast, dwindled a little bit. But we're still able to keep going, and so we've gradually been building our numbers up. But the goal would be to have close to 150 cast members on the stage this fall, and that does not include the camel or the horses or the sheep or the other animals that are a part of the production as well. So we are a fairly large production. Again, I think the scale is something that a lot of people don't realize. Again, being in Glen Rose, which is a town of just a few thousand people, that this production of this size is right here in Little Glen Rose. So
that's amazing. Are your actors local, or Texan, or are they from other parts of the country or the world?
We have a good mix. Probably the majority of our cast is from kind of this north central Texas area. I am actually in Waco right now and have been since I started. So I commute up a little bit for now. My family will be moving up to Glen Rose now that I've started this position. But I saw an audition poster at Baylor University where I was getting a master's in performance, and called up Chuck, who was the director at the time, and he had already cast the show, but gave me a chance to come in and jump in and do some things that he still had open. And that's kind of how I got involved. And so we have pulled people from Waco, from the Metroplex, from kind of this Cleburne, Burleson, Granbury, Stephenville area. But last season we had a gentleman commute all the way from Mississippi to be in our show
Wow.
on the weekends.
That's dedication.
And so I think with what he does, he's able to write off the rental car and everything else that he has to
That's
use to get
crazy.
here. But he was committed, so he was here
Yeah.
pretty much every weekend.
Wow. So have you, in the past, have you participated on stage, or has your role been more in the?
Yeah, so the first season that I was cast, I ended up being Joseph and Bartimaeus. So I was two
Okay.
different roles, and then a Roman
Wow.
soldier towards the end of the show. So I did a little bit of
Wow.
everything. And my middle daughter was born during the run of that production, so she actually got to play baby Jesus on closing night.
Hey, that is special.
Wow.
So that was a neat moment to be Joseph and have her be baby Jesus in that show. And then since then, I was given the opportunity to audition for the role of Jesus the following spring. And so I have been doing that for the last 4 years or so, which has been a really neat thing. I see it as a huge responsibility. It's obviously not something you want to get wrong for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
But it's been a really neat privilege too. And so I think one of the things about that is just trying to allow the Holy Spirit to work in that, because in trying to portray who Jesus is and what he does, obviously I'm not speaking the same language. You know, I probably don't look a whole lot like what Jesus actually looked like, you know, but what I'm trying to put out there is something real about the way he interacted with people, and something real about the way he interacted with his Father. And so I think that's something that's been the prayer in playing that role, is that people are able to see something authentic about who Jesus is when they come to the promise and see me in that role, which, you know, I probably can't keep doing forever. At some point, I'm going to lose more of my hair, and we'll have to find somebody else to play it. But it's been certainly a very unique and powerful experience to be able to do that for the last few years.
So I'm sure the question would be on our viewers' minds as much as it is on my mind. But playing Jesus, have you connected to him relationally in a new way? And have things been revealed to you, or spiritual aha moments?
There have been a lot. I think probably two of the most profound things that I think I've gotten out of it was there's one of my favorite scenes in the show is right after the Sermon on the Mount, and we have a song called "Come Unto Me," where Jesus is singing to different people in the crowd, and he's not doing something, you know, miraculous for every person in the crowd, but there's a sense that Jesus has something for everyone.
Yeah.
And so as, you know, Jesus is moving from the woman at the well to the soldier on the edge of the crowd to we have Mary Magdalene's little bit comes in that scene. There's some way that Jesus connects with everybody. And as we were first kind of rehearsing that scene and thinking about, like, how does Jesus move through a crowd? Because I don't think Jesus ignores anybody.
Right.
And so that's a challenging thing. Like, if there's hundreds of people, you literally can't. Jesus in his humanity could not have made a personal connection with, 300 people at the same time. And yet somehow he's aware of and knows everybody.
Yeah.
And so in that process, trying to figure out, so how does Jesus walk by someone? Because he's not going to say something to everybody, but he's not going to ignore anybody.
Right.
And so there's something about that, just trying to process, okay, how does Jesus treat this person? How does Jesus treat that person? How does Jesus be the Prince of Peace and the King of Kings while he's buying a loaf of bread. Like there's
Yeah.
and in that it
Wow.
was really convicting, because it was like, well, how does Jesus treat this person? And in
Yeah.
that process, it's, well, shoot, I should probably be thinking about this all the time, because I'm interacting with people on the daily.
Wow.
And am I
Right.
really thinking about, how does Jesus treat this person? How does
Mm.
Jesus see this person?
Mhm.
And there's that verse about seeing people according to the Spirit and not according to the flesh. And, I feel like I'm operating in my flesh probably the majority of the time. And so thinking about, so how do I get to the point where I'm seeing people how Jesus sees people? And so that was one of the more kind of profound things that I think has come out of it. And then the other one is, experiencing, and we're just pretending, but experiencing the crucifixion from the perspective of Jesus is
Mm.
something that has been very, very powerful. And
Mm.
it's I am not being physically hurt in any way in the scene,
Mm.
unless something wrong happens. But the
Mm.
the process is still very physically demanding. Our scene lasts anywhere from probably 7 to 10 minutes, and there's a lot physically involved in dragging the cross up and across the stage and back and forth, and then actually physically hanging there for a certain amount of time. And while I wouldn't say that it physically approaches anything at all compared to what Jesus actually went through, walking in those steps and feeling some element of physical discomfort in that process, there's just a hint at what that might have been like. And that has been also a very powerful experience. So I have appreciated the chance just to have a new perspective on, what we call the passion, and the physical and kind of emotional suffering. Again, even just a small piece of that has been sobering and humbling, and all of that together. So
Yeah.
And I'm sure too, as you are outside of the production, you're that much more mindful of engaging with people in the community, because now they know you
As Jesus.
as Jesus from
You're
I
Jesus.
promise, no pressure.
right. Yes. No, there's a little bit of that. I have recently moved into some leadership roles at my church, and there's some definitely some things that you look at a little differently, probably for the better, but
Sure.
maybe not from the best motivations. Obviously, the best motivation would be Jesus has treated me this way, so I'm going to treat other people this way. But I don't think a little external of I want to reflect well on the church or the institution or whatever is necessarily a terrible motivation either.
No.
So there's definitely some of that in there as well.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. That's a great question, because that was fun to learn about. Thanks for telling us about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got to play Peter in like a summer, and that was 2 years ago, and everybody calls me Peter still. The little kids still call me Peter today, and I'm like, you do know that my name's Eric, right?
Yes.
Nope.
Nope,
They don't.
they don't. It's fun. The power of the imagination and the power of the story of Jesus and how he lived. That is so cool. So Glen Rose, you guys have been there for 36 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think from what I understand, and I could be wrong, there was maybe some sort of angel investor who helped build this entire amphitheater around the entire show. And I heard recently, like you were alluding to, that they may want to move the show from Glen Rose, and you're just like, oh my goodness, it's an institution, it's a staple for the city. And I think some of this might be a little bit around politics and taxes and things like this. And I don't know all the ins and outs, but how is that going? Are they making any headway? Is the public's opinion on the side of keeping the show, or is the public's opinion on, hey, we're kind of done with the show? We saw it 36 times.
Yeah. We're in a kind of a unique situation. So the Promise facility, the actual Texas Amphitheater is what the facility is known as, was built in cooperation with the county here, Somerville County, and the Kingdom Foundation, which is the group that kind of started the Promise, and originally was involved in the producing of the show and getting it in Glen Rose. And at the time, the county had a lot of revenue from the nuclear plant that's close by. And so they kind of entered this partnership where the Kingdom Foundation donated the property that the Texas Amphitheater sits on, and the county built the facility with the understanding that the Promise would be using it during the Promise season, and then the county would be free to use it for, whatever they wanted to use it for outside of the Promise season. And that partnership, I think, worked pretty well for maybe a decade, maybe a little bit longer. And then as there wasn't a lot of interest in using the facility outside of the Promise, the county ended up not being able to continue to care for the facility. They were thinking that they might end up having to shut the whole thing down because it costs a lot to maintain a facility as big as the one that we have.
Yeah.
So I want to say in 2013, the county was at the point where they were going to shut the whole thing down, shut the amphitheater down. The Promise was, really facing the reality that was going to be kind of the end of the whole thing. And I'm not sure who all was involved in the negotiations, but they came to an understanding where the Promise would lease the facility kind of like a Hong Kong style lease with the county, where the Promise would be responsible for all of the maintenance. The Promise would be responsible for the upkeep of the facility, and we would be able to keep it open. So the county, other than an insurance policy, hasn't had to spend anything on the property since 2013.
Yeah.
And so it's gotten to the point where the Promise has done maintenance to keep things from falling apart, and to repair broken pipes and do different things that the facility has needed. We had a couple of freezes, and the plumbing ended up not surviving some of those freezes. And there's lots of other things that after 36 years, the lighting, the sound, are just not at industry standard anymore. But the county, again, entered this agreement in 2013 because they were done putting money into the facility.
Right.
And so in order to bring the facility up to operational standards, there's going to be a lot of money. And that quote has been, anywhere from $5 to $8 million to get the facility up to kind of operational standards, because the lights are 30 years old. The lights are, from what I've heard, actually used to the Promise. So they're probably more like 50 years old.
Wow.
The sound system is 36 years old. And all of those things, are well out of date as far as, being state of the art performing equipment.
Right.
And so the impasse that we're kind of at is that we have people that are willing to invest in the property to help us move on with the ministry and get things up to where we feel like they should go. But if the county still owns the facility,
Right.
then we don't have a lot of investors who are willing to put that much money into a facility if the county can take it away at any time and say, no, we own this,
Sure.
And so that has been kind of the impasse with the county, is that the facility desperately needs to be updated. The county doesn't have the money to update it to make it a functional performing arts facility. But in order for the Promise to acquire the property, the county would like, or is asking more than what we are able to spend on the facility in the condition that it's in now. And so I think everybody wants the Promise to have the facility. I don't think the county wants to keep the facility and be responsible for the maintenance of the facility. I think the town of Glenrose has benefited greatly from the amount of people that the Promise has brought in over the years. I think, including the tours that the Promise did back in the 90s, we're estimating that over 1 million people have seen the Promise over the last 36 years.
That's amazing.
And a lot of those people have come to Glenrose. And so when you're talking about the economic impact on a town like Glenrose, the Promise has been a driver of a lot of positive economic activity for the town. I can't speak for every last cast member, but generally speaking, the people that we are bringing in are people that are nice people to be around, and bringing positive influence to the city, and we're not bringing in like crazy biker rallies or things like that, so not that I have anything against bikers.
Yeah.
I used to ride one, but it's there's a reputation there that those kind of events can go sideways, and that's
Sure.
not the type of events that we're putting on. And so there's this idea that the Promise probably should, and we want to stay in Glenrose. We don't want to go anywhere else. The name of the production and the name of the company is the Promise in Glenrose. That's part of our name, and that's part of our history. But we're just kind of stuck at an impasse where we don't feel like it's fiscally responsible to pay more for a property that is just not in great shape. And the county doesn't feel like they can let it go for less than what they have decided to. So we're kind of at that place where somebody's going to have to figure out a compromise. And if there was a way that we could offer more, we would certainly look at that, and hopefully the county is willing to kind of come down. But at this point, it's just one of those things where we're going to have to find out how that can work. So
Yeah.
we have reached out to the town and our supporters around Texas, and we've asked them to sign a petition, which is on our website. And that petition is just encouraging the county commissioners here in Somerville County to think about the impact that the Promise has had, and if they are going to sell the facility, because it's been listed for public bid, that they would sell it to the Promise and not to a developer who's going to come in and knock the facility down and try to build another development up here, or whatever it is that somebody would do if they were to buy the property. So that's kind of where we're at with that, and we're praying for an outcome that's good for the Promise and good for Glenrose. And so we're just kind of waiting to see where that goes.
Yeah, it sounds like it is a blessing all around. And so I know, moving forward, it will be a blessing no matter where it's located. But with the Lord's favor and mercy, it will stay where it's at. So we'll keep y'all in prayer for that.
Thank you.
And we did go on and sign the petition. And
All
so,
right.
Lord willing, many of our viewers will go and do the same. That would be a huge blessing. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I think and I pray right now that there's an angel investor watching this show, and that the Lord's asking you to help get this facility up to par, and with new lighting and new sound, and any of the other electrical and plumbing that might need some updating. And if it's the Lord's laying it on your heart, please reach out to Josh Lee, and y'all need to get together.
Absolutely.
So, as Eric said, we have not had the honor to see the production, but it looks really exciting. I mean, just the pictures of the amphitheater alone are amazing. But then, some of the pictures on set, it's really incredible.
Costume. The
is.
costumes are gigantic.
When we have the three kings from the Nativity, those are some of the kind of the more ambitious costumes. A lot of color, a lot of interesting flair from the traditional kind of the African king and the Indian king, and And so we have a lot of costumes. Our costume lady, Miss Barbara, has been in the show for a long, long time, and she's done a great job of getting some. We like the authenticity of our costumes certainly, but there's some good creativity mixed in there as well. And then of course, the kids always like the animals, and so we have at least one camel now, and there's been times when we've had more than one camel. I think we for this fall season have at least one, and then there we have horses coming across the stage, and donkeys being ridden by Mary and by Jesus, and so I think that's a neat element, not just for the authenticity, but just they're real animals and they're on the stage, so they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Bringing that to life.
Is there like a petting zoo before the show or something where
we have done that, and we do have one up by the gift shop. So there are typically opportunities for our patrons to come and meet some of our animals. We also do a backstage tour before most of our shows, where people can come and kind of see how we run everything backstage, and get to see where we keep the animals and where our props are, and kind of get an idea of what it takes to put on a show from this side of. Well, we don't have a curtain, but we do have a moat. So there's a moat that we have a boat that goes across for the storm and for the calling of the disciples. And so, we don't say this side of the curtain. We typically say this side of the moat, because that's at the front of our stage. So,
wow,
that's incredible.
That is so cool. I want to go.
So, okay, so how authentic are you to the land, the times, the language?
That actually goes into some of how the show has kind of grown and changed over the years. So when the show was originally written back in 1989, you have the story of Jesus, but it was kind of interwoven with a story of a grandpa and his kids that are actually from Texas, and they're looking for dinosaur fossils, which is a big thing in the Glen Rose area. And then there's kind of a magical transportation to the time of Jesus, and they're observing the story in kind of a very 80s kind of, juxtaposition of the modern with, one of those travel back in time kinds of stories.
Yeah.
And so that was the original story up until about 6 years ago. And in looking at the show, and kind of what the modern audience is looking for in a show, the decision was made to take some of the songs and then kind of the side narrative of the show itself, which had been Grandpa and the kids, and do some editing and some rewriting to try and make the show a little bit more kind of timeless in the way that it's presented. And so instead of Grandpa and his kids, the side narrative was rewritten to follow Reuben, who is a shepherd in the first century, and his family. And so it follows Reuben and Tirzah and their family as they kind of watch how this story of Jesus is unfolding kind of next to them. And they follow him from Reuben being a little boy in the fields of Bethlehem when the star and the angels show up at Jesus's birth, to him having his own family when Jesus begins his ministry, and following alongside the story that way.
Cool.
And so that was one of the major updates to the show that happened. And then again, the music being written in the late 80s had a very decidedly late 80s, early 90s contemporary Christian feel to the music. So think Sandy Patty and like that kind of vibe to a lot of the music. Drum machines, a little bit of, some of those things in some of the bigger tracks. And while the songs are really powerful still, the sound of them is a little bit dated. And so the decision was made to try and update some of those tracks. And so we were able to keep some of them and just update the sound. But then we have written some new songs here and there that filled kind of the same places in the show, but have a little bit more kind of a contemporary feel to them. And so the show continues to grow and change, and we're constantly evaluating, does this song work for the way that we're trying to convey this scene? And the latest song we've added is one sung by Peter after he denies Jesus, and that's the newest addition to the show. There was a song there called Yesterday that we did for years and years and years, that just was a beautiful sentiment, but again, very kind of dated in the way that it was orchestrated and felt. And so, there are the promise purists out there who argue that the best way to do it is the way that it was written in 1989, with all of the songs. And we certainly want to be conscious of, the legacy of the show. And there's a song called "The Promise Is a Promise," and that's another one that maybe is not the most updated version of what we have, but it's really tough to consider taking out the song called "A Promise Is a Promise" from the show called "The Promise."
Right.
We're having those conversations, but we're trying to keep the heart of the show intact and not change what the heart of it has been from the beginning, which is telling the story of Jesus in a way that people can understand it and connect with it, in a way that reading it or just is different. And I'm a big fan of and proponent of being able to communicate things through the arts that just hit your soul differently than just having something read to you, and I certainly believe that Scripture is sufficient, but I think we can use the gifts that God has given us through the performing arts and through music to communicate that in a way that just hits a little differently. So that's what we're trying to do. And so as the show kind of grows and changes through the years, we've had a version of the show that went to Russia right after the fall of the Berlin Wall. It was the end of communism, and Russia was opening up, and the Promise was able to go to Moscow and perform in Moscow, Russia, with the whole production. The Promise has been overseas a few different times, to South Korea, where they took one side of the giant soccer stadium and they did a giant canvas backdrop, and the whole show just gradually moved slowly across this, couple 100-yard long stage that they had. And there's the Promise was in Branson, Missouri as a running show for 7 years. They took the original production from Glen Rose and had a version of it in Branson, with all of the shows that are there. And a church from New York bought all of the sets or the props and the costumes from that production when it went, and they have taken the production version called His Life, and it's very close to the original production of The Promise, and they travel with that and take it to different parts of the world pretty regularly. And so the legacy of The Promise is actually a really neat thing, and so we're really happy that we're able to continue that legacy here in Glen Rose where it started. But I think it's just a testament to that if you follow the Lord's leading and you get something started, that He can be faithful to take it a lot of different places and do a lot of different things with it that you may not have ever envisioned when you got it started. So
Amen.
Seed was planted and it's grown into a tree and it's bearing fruit. That's beautiful.
That's awesome. So do you currently, with your current production, do you ever take the show on the road anywhere, or is it just right now just stapled in Glen Rose?
Yeah, we are just in Glen Rose for the time being. As we look at the future and what we hope we're able to do with the production over the course of the next 5 or 10 years, we would love to see all kinds of options from being able to take the show and travel potentially, or bringing new shows and potentially writing new material and having those fill our calendar here at The Promise in some of those times when we don't have an active show going. And so there's a lot of big dreams happening right now at The Promise. So we're just trying to focus on what's the next step for us. And right now, a lot of that has to do with the amphitheater and what we can do with the facility that we have. And we'll see kind of where it goes from there.
And so if people were to go online, they can reserve their tickets for the shows already? Is
Yeah,
that
so our
correct?
fall season tickets are on sale already. Our Christmas season tickets will be on sale soon. We are hoping to have an option, and again, some of this is dependent on what the county commission decides in the next several weeks, but we have some preliminary dates for our spring show already out, and we're hoping to be able to offer season passes for folks who would be able to then get tickets to our fall season, our Christmas season, and our spring season at the same time. And so we could, get people who can come back show after show and enjoy the Promise experience. So
that's wonderful. And then are there lodging in Glen Rose? Do you guys have links to the best lodging?
We do. We have several different of the hotels in Glen Rose have partnered with us, and there's a place on our website where you can find our partners and local organizations and hotels and that support the Promise that we would recommend. There are also a lot of Airbnbs and restaurants, and Glen Rose was when they had this money from the nuclear facility, a lot of effort was made to kind of build a tourism center in Glen Rose. So along with the Promise, there's a lot of great things for families and for groups to do, along with the restaurants on the square and things like that. There's the safari park that's here in town called Fossil Rim. There's Dinosaur Valley, which is a place where you can see a lot of dinosaur fossils. There's forget exactly what I heard, but this is one of the highest concentration. This area has one of the highest concentration of dinosaur fossils of any place in the United States, if not the world. So there's a couple of places where if you're interested in dinosaurs, you can like walk out there and see dinosaur fossils just kind of on the ground and kind of get a feel for what was here way back when. And we have a creation evidence museum here in town, or right outside of town. So if you're interested in bringing your family to come look at some of the evidence that points towards a creator, that is the Creation Evidence Museum is here. We have a really nice golf course. A lot of other things in town. So
nice.
It's something where if you're going to come see the Promise, you could make a weekend out of it very, very easily, and bring the kids and have a good time.
That's really neat to see how the Father has specifically brought this to life here in that area. And as you're talking about the dinosaur fossils and the Creation Evidence Museum, I'm just seeing these biblical pieces that God is really showcasing to people, and Glen Rose is the place to do it. So what a beautiful fullness to have the story of Jesus shown to the world there. That's really neat.
Yeah, we really pray that the Father just brings the everything back together, and that you guys stay there another 36 years, and that's amazing. I want to go golfing with Jesus. How about it, Josh?
There's a par 3 there where if you hit it too short, Jesus is the only one who's going to be able to play from there.
Walking on the water.
That's right.
Wow, that is so fun.
So, do you have a question? I saw a question forming. I'm sorry.
Well, in the back of my mind, it's like, what do I need? I gotta get my portfolio together, a videotape of my singing skills, send it off to Josh. How do we get cast into the show?
That's a great question. We had our first round of auditions for the fall this last Saturday up in near Weatherford, and then we try to make that a little closer for our Metroplex friends who might not want to drive all the way to Glen Rose for an audition. But our next round this next Saturday is going to be Saturday morning here in Glen Rose, and we are looking for all kinds of talents and skills and abilities, not just folks that are, great at solo singing, but like we are looking for a large cast. We're hoping to get 150 people on the stage this fall. And so that means we need people who can convincingly play shepherds and townspeople and people that are running their market, and all of those roles. And you don't have to be a great solo singer to be able to do that. And so
Nice.
we just need people that we need some people that can handle animals. So there's plenty of people that have grown up on farms in Texas, and so if you can help wrangle some animals, there's a spot for you here too. So
Cool.
if you are interested in being a part of the production, we have the ability to sign up for that last weekend of auditions on our website. If you go to thepromiseglenrose.com/auditions, there's a link where you can sign up to be a part of the show, or to say that you're interested in being part of the show, whether that's as a member of the cast or as a member of the crew. We have openings with our stagehands, our tech crew, lighting, sound, wardrobe. So if you don't want to be on stage in front of a lot of people, but you have other gifts that we could put to work, there's just about nobody that we couldn't find something to do if you wanted to be involved here at the Promise. So again, you don't have to necessarily be interested in auditioning, but it's the Promise Glenrose/auditions if you were interested in signing up to see what you could do to be a part of what we're doing out here. And as far as actors and singers are concerned, if you are not able to get to Glenrose on Saturday, we are accepting video auditions. You would just need to record 30 to 60 seconds of something from the musical theater rep, and we'd kind of see what you can do and see if there's a role for you on stage in the show.
It sounds so exciting. I've done a little theater acting, as a
We
kid.
both have.
But the energy and the camaraderie is just wonderful to be a part of. So I can only imagine how it is to portray the life of Jesus and to really dive into that, and bringing it to life. It just sounds really exciting. But in giving, we receive. So I just think it sounds like you're just constantly refueled. God keeps, he'll fill your cup back up so you can do the next performance. And it sounds like a really neat opportunity to give, but in turn be blessed.
It is. And once we get to the show season, there's we have a few full-time staff now, but most of the folks in our cast and crew are doing it very, very, very part-time. And so we are able to offer stipends for most of our roles for the cast, but for the folks who are coming from Mississippi, it's probably not going to cover your gas. And so the people that have been here are really, to me, kind of the heart of what has kept the Promise alive. We have families where 3 generations of the family are in the show currently,
Wow.
And we have folks on stage who were in the original cast 36 years ago, and their parents helped, were part of the foundation that got us started. And so it really is a family atmosphere. And I think that's something that has been neat, because having done different shows and been involved in different programs, sometimes there's a production that has kind of a family atmosphere to it, and sometimes there's not. And
Sure.
And so this has been just really neat. Human beings are going to disagree, and there's going to be differences of opinion on whether we should light this set this way or this way, or how we're gonna do that. But the hope is that we're able to disagree well and have healthy conflict, because we all have the same goal of getting the story of Jesus out in front of people, so they can change their lives. And every night when we break our cast meeting to go on stage, I don't know how long it's been going, but since before I've been there, a veteran cast member will say, "Let's go tell them about," and everybody says, "Jesus."
Yeah.
And so there is no doubt the reason why we're there and why we're doing what we're doing. So it has certainly been neat to be a part of that atmosphere, because it's a very unique performance opportunity. It's not like anything else that I've done.
So I guess on a more personal note, when did you start honing your acting skills? When was that inspired in your life?
So I was a choir kid through middle school and high school, and I played team sports for most of growing up. But I was really fortunate. I went to a Christian middle school that had just an unbelievable theater director, and this whole school had like 60 kids, right? But she put on Sound of Music somehow with
Wow.
6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and she did like there were just really neat opportunities, and that's kind of where I got the bug. And then my freshman year of high school, I played baseball in the spring, but my sister was in the theater department, and they did Guys and Dolls that year. And I think I went and saw Guys and Dolls like 7 times. And was I liked baseball, but there was something about I was missing out on being in the show, and I had my worst season batting ever. I think I hit like 200 for the season, and it wasn't the pitching. It was just it was just not. But I didn't play very well, and
That's
so
what qualifies you to be Jesus. You're humble. You can admit.
when the next season came around, I think we did Brigadoon my sophomore year, maybe something like that. I ended up going into the musical theater program instead of continuing on with baseball, and it ended up being a good choice. I've really enjoyed being a part of storytelling in that way. So I ended up being a music major in college, kind of leaning more on the classical side, and then I actually ended up teaching high school math for quite a few years, and just doing some performing on the side. Eventually decided that if I wanted to really be serious about it, I was going to have to put some time and some effort into it, and went back to get a master's in music, which is what got me to Baylor. And so that was, again, pretty heavily kind of slanted towards the classical end of things. So I did a lot of opera, a lot of classical art song kind of music during that time, and really enjoyed that. But that's a very kind of niche performance market. There's you kind of have to pick your spots if you're going to make a career out of that. And at that point, we had either 3 or 4 plus children. And so trying to get your foot in the door for a performing arts career while not feeding your family cardboard is a very delicate balance to walk. And so when I graduated, I did some auditions with some different opera companies around the country, and just didn't find a good fit. And that's when I kind of stumbled across The Promise, and it has been a huge blessing. An outlet for, the kind of the creative side that I really have a heart for, and a chance to tell people about Jesus, which I'm also very passionate about. So.
Okay, so do you have a little bit of a song that you could or might
put him on the spot
share with us?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Let me drink some water first. But
la 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 la, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather.
Warm up.
There's a great choir one that we did back in high school, and it's one of those tongue twister ones. And it was I shot a hippopotamus with bullets made of platinum, for if I had used leaded ones, his hide would surely flatten them. And you try to run through that quickly on a pitch and keep it going. So let's see. I mentioned the Come Unto Me song, which we have kind of right after the Sermon on the Mount. And so that one goes, come unto me and drink this living water. Come unto me and you'll find rest for your souls. Come thirsty and I'll give you streams in the desert. All the dry places will blossom like a rose. And it continues on from there. But so that's one of my favorite moments in the show.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you
allergies,
so much.
I think, like tears. I don't know. Thank you so much. That is really that touches the soul. It's beautiful. Thank you.
It was great. If you're watching this and you haven't gone to Glen Rose to see The Promise, get online now, go buy your tickets and make the plans. Go see Josh. Josh, we want to come out with our cameras and maybe get an updated episode maybe on the set with you one day if we could do that.
That would be
great.
fantastic. Yeah, well, you could maybe do a little mini documentary of our rehearsal process or something like that. That could be a lot of fun.
Oh, we would love it. I think the audience would love it too. Get your tickets and get out and support Glen Rose and support The Promise, support Josh, and feed a good story, one of the best stories ever written about our Savior, our Messiah, Jesus Christ. Like you said, from birth to resurrection. Man, what an amazing story! I can't wait to see it myself and shake your hand in person. Thank you so much. If you guys are enjoying this, please like, share, subscribe, and show people this story. And thank you, Josh, for that little bit. Holly, you want to say anything else?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Josh, for joining us. It's been an honor and a pleasure to visit with you. Thank you for sharing your life and what God is doing through The Promise. That's beautiful. So
likewise, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it was great to meet y'all.
May the Lord open all the doors for you and your family as you decide to move into Glen Rose, and that you find the right house, the right schools, and get settled in. And may all the works of your hands be blessed.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the Light of the Southwest. And shalom, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Shalom.